Arch Advocate Podcast. I've said it before, and I'll probably say it 1,000 more times before I die. There are two things that you need if you want to walk in the way of the Lord: a broken heart and a big set of stones, which might be weird if you're a girl, but I think you get the point. The two things you're going to need, and the battle is on, and we're going to be talking about that. But to calm myself down, to give hope, let me read today's devotional to you, written by Sarah Young, a longtime missionary, wrote a devotional book called Jesus Calling. It is written in the first person. January 31st, I am your strength and shield. I am your strength and shield, says the Lord. I plan out each day, and I have it ready for you long before you get out of bed. I also provide the strength that you need each step of the way. Instead of assessing your energy level and wondering about what's on the road ahead, concentrate on staying in touch with me. My power flows freely into you. Through our open communication, refuse to waste energy worrying, and you will have strength to spare. Whenever you start to feel afraid, remember, I am your shield. But unlike inanimate armor, I am always alert and active. My presence watches over you continually, protecting you from both known and unknown dangers. Entrust yourself to my watch care, which is the best security system available. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go. Now listen, there's not enough that can be said about this thing with the abortion. The thing that's already passed in New York, the thing that is about to be passed in Virginia, and for sure, California and or Colorado will be next. This is just the beginning. You have to look at this for what it is. All of a sudden, a couple of states say, you know what? If there's a heartbeat and a nervous system and brain activity, we're not doing it. 22 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever. And most people who are very pro-abortion were like, okay, that's fair enough. There's a heartbeat, that's a person. We get it. Well, what about Roe v. Wade? There wasn't the technology back in 1973 to find out if there was, evidence of like an individual human soul in there. Nervous system, heartbeat, respiratory system, brain waves, that whole thing. So most people who are pro-abortion were like, yeah, that's fair enough. And then all of a sudden, Donald Trump becomes president, and all these states are like, yeah, you know what, this is getting out of hand. We're cutting this down. We're gonna put some restrictions on this. And then Texas comes out and says, oh, we're not going to have the people of the United States funding this. You want an abortion? Roe v. Wade says you can get it, but you can't compel people to pay for it who object to it. Right? You got to look at this like a chessboard. Right? Those are moves made. Little political moves. Political moves in a moral, looking for a moral outcome. Right? It's unfortunate that they are political moves, and that we've come to that place as our society. But that's what they are. They were political moves. No more funding. We're going to go to court. We're going to prove that, Planned Parenthood is selling baby parts and making money on it. So you know what? Like, this is out of control. No more free money for you. And then the counter move, just like when you're playing chess. By the way, there's a way. When you play chess, there's a way to get your opponent into checkmate in 3 moves, and I actually did it once. Now you might say, like, oh, Peter, you gloating. No, the fact is I was playing like a 15-year-old kid. I was working at, I was volunteering. This church that I went to had a community center that they owned, where neighborhood kids can come in and they can play pool and ping pong and video games and have sodas and whatever. And but there was like a discipleship thing in process where they would learn about Jesus and whatever. So I was there hanging out. Me and my buddy Mike, this guy Mike, I can't remember his last name, but I'm sitting here with this kid and playing chess, and I got him in checkmate in 3 moves, and he was blown away. He's like, "Whoa, what's that?" Because it is important how you move your pieces, but it's equal, and in most cases more important what your opponent does, because that's what your opponent does is going to tell you what you're going to do next, right? And you have to look at this abortion thing. This is a game of chess, and unfortunately, babies are the pieces. So these people, right? Ohio, Texas, a couple other states, they say, yeah, like this is crazy. You can't be tearing babies apart in the womb at 22 weeks. That's disgusting. That's a fully formed human being. That is a viable life. That kid can come out of the womb right now and live healthy and long. We can't kill these babies anymore. That's the moral thing. That's the moral thing to do. And what did the opponent, what did your adversary do in response to that? He said, oh, well, in this state, we're going to step our game up because it's not about babies to us. We don't care about that. So what we're going to do in an aggressive move to get you quickly into check, we're going to kill babies at 9 months. And Virginia says, oh, no, we can do one better. Not only are we going to kill babies at 280 days, 40 weeks, 9 months, not only are we going to do that, but even if the baby's born and the umbilical cord has been severed, we will still, in many circumstances, be open to the idea of terminating the life of a human outside of the womb. It was a chess move. This is important because there have already begun the ramifications in the spiritual world being played out in the real world. You have to understand this is far from over. And this is precisely why Kamala Harris championed the cause of making a federal crime to lynch somebody. Remember, most people are walking around thinking lynching is when a bunch of white people in hoods kill a black person in the woods. That's not what lynching is. Lynching means coming together as a community, judging somebody without the presence of a judge, finding them guilty, and executing that person on site without any sort of legal proceedings. That's what a lynching is. And it's a crime everywhere. You can't do that. We are a people of law. We are a nation of laws. We are a rule of law people. And that's why everywhere in the United States it's against the law to lynch somebody. Why the need to put that into a federal category to where when a lynching happens, the feds get involved? Does it have anything to do with the fact that we can see now that like the demonic forces are well entrenched in the FBI? Not saying all FBI people are bad. Wherever there's demonic activity, there is angelic activity. Believe that. As many evil people, Peter Strzok, sitting there testifying to Congress with that funny little grin of his, that demonic. Did you see that? Did you see that look on his face? That's what a demon looks like. You think it's just a coincidence that Christine Blasey Ford shot that exact same glare? You go look at there's a meme of it right now. You look at those two pictures right next to each other. And beyond the cheekbones and the placement of the nose and the width of the eyes, you can see a face, and it's exactly the same face. There are demons entrenched in the FBI, in the Department of Justice, in the CIA, in the White House, on the staff, in the Marine Corps, in the 4 branches of military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. They're everywhere. In the Supreme Court. Look at what's happening right now with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whatever her name is. She's missing. She's probably dead. And they don't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to investigate it, because the moment it's confirmed that she's no longer a viable human being, like if she's laying in her bed, she's been diagnosed with cancer 3 times in as many decades. She has 3 different types of cancer, and has for a long time. There's a reason why she's not coming out in public saying, no, I'm fine. I'm still living. I'm fine, I got a flu, I had to lay down for a little while. No, there's a reason why that's not happening. And the reason why nobody wants to investigate is because they know. The minute it's confirmed that she's no longer in control of her own mind or is dead, Trump gets to name another Supreme Court justice, and then it's all over. That's 3. That's a hat trick in his first 2 years. A little over 2 years. Right? It's a big deal. You might be thinking to yourself like, oh, Pete, I don't know about it. You go too far with all this Jesus stuff. You mean there's going to be a spiritual battle? Dude, it's already on. Let me tell you something about killing babies. God, that is one of those lines with God. Like if you want to find out if there is a God or not, you start diving into sacrificing babies to Moloch, you're going to find out the hard way. And for those of you who need further verification of that, let me tell you a story. Now, Jewish people deny that Jesus Christ was the Messiah. And to a certain degree, they have good theological reason for that. There's a lot of prophecies about the coming of the Messiah. And some of those prophecies say he's going to be tortured to death and killed, that he's going to be penniless and poor and a man well acquainted with sorrow. There's a lot of things that describe the Jesus that we all know. And there's other prophecies that say, well, no, when he comes, he's going to come and establish his kingdom, and he's going to be a king of Israel, and he's going to be like a politician and a warrior, just like King David. And he's going to come from the line of King David, so he'll have that in his blood already. And when Jesus showed up, that's not what was delivered. However, if you read the last book of the Bible, Revelations, if all that stuff comes true, then all of those prophecies about that particular type of king, it would all make sense if you looked at it. But I digress, it doesn't matter. Here's the thing. Here's all you need to know. Right? Was this guy, was he the Messiah, or was he just some really good dude who got, unjustly tortured to death? What if he's just a metaphor? You claim your room, bucko. That was a really terrible Jordan B. Peterson. What if it's just a metaphor? Okay, well, think about this. 2,000 years ago, there were a bunch of Jews chanting to Pontius Pilate saying, let his blood be on our hands. Right? Like when we go to God, we claim the blood of Jesus to wash us, to cover us completely. They weren't saying that. They didn't say let his blood be on our head, be on our body. They said let it be on our hands. And what that meant was like, let it be known that we want this. We want him to die. We don't want this guy. We want the other Messiah, whose name was Barabbas. And they cried out, give us Barabbas. That guy looks more like the savage ruling Messiah that we've read about in all these. And I can do a whole thing on that. Barabbas was a runner-up. Okay, there were a number of people in that time that people were thinking that guy might be the Messiah, and Barabbas was one of those people. And the Jews said, we don't want the Jesus Messiah, we want the Barabbas Messiah. Give us Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. And then Jesus hung on the cross and said, Father, forgive them. They have no idea what they're doing. And God forgave them. And you want to know how we know that? Because he didn't slay every last one of them. He forgave them for killing his son. But what he did do to those people was the most devastating consequence we've ever seen God deal out to the Jews. There was the 400 years of slavery in Egypt when God told he told the Israelites, you can go to Egypt to buy food. Don't stay there. Get your food, wait till the famine's over, then head back to the land that I gave to you. What did they do? They disobeyed. They said, this land is a land of plenty. There's water. Look at this, the Nile, man. There's just food everywhere. Let's just stay here. This is cool. 400 years of slavery. God let them endure the consequences of their decision. That was about as harsh as it gets. And then the 40 years through the wilderness. The Jews said, let his blood be on our hands, and God destroyed that nation and sent them into exile for 2,000 years. That happened right after the whole Jesus story took place. Coincidence? Hey Jews, is that just a coincidence? That's a hell of a coincidence. This guy who you say who was not the Messiah comes, gets put to death. There's rumors of his resurrection, and then you say, well, he's not the Messiah. As a matter of fact, his mother Mary was a whore who was raped by a centurion named Pantera. And Jesus was the illegitimate child. You started telling lies about who Jesus was, and all of a sudden, your temple is torn down by Nero, and you are cast into the earth, homeless, a people with no name and no nation. And everybody hates you. 2,000 years of that. Why? Because you stood there and you chanted, let his blood be on our hands. Let his death be, let it be known that this man's torture to death was done by our hands and not the Romans who actually did it. 2,000 years of exile. Coincidence, huh? That's just a coincidence. Yeah, that guy's not the Messiah. That guy's not the Messiah. It's just coincidence that right after you said, let his blood be on our hands, you had 2,000 years of exile. 2,000 years. And not only that, God even took away your priests. When Nero destroyed the temple, that wasn't the only thing. And think about this too. Rome loved Israel. Israel was one of the many, many, many nations that when Rome showed up and said, hey, we want you to be part of the Roman Empire, they're like, cool, where do I sign? They didn't put up a fight. Rome was getting rich off of Israel. Israel was getting rich off of Rome. They loved each other. Nero had no reason to go in and destroy Israel. But he did anyways. He tore down their temple and he destroyed all of their records. In a time before the mass production of paper. Right? So it's not like you can be like, hey, do you remember what was in there? Just write it down real quick. No. These were scrolls. It took hundreds of years to compile. And in those scrolls were the genealogies. Those genealogies are important because in order to have priests and even a high priest, it's a matter of bloodlines. In order to be a priest, you have to be the son of a priest, and you have to be the firstborn child out of the womb of the priest and his wife. That's the only way you can do it. And to be a high priest, like it's all bloodlines. And Nero took all of that away from them and burned it. And to this day, there is no high priest of Judaism. And you want to know why? There's no priest whatsoever. There's only rabbis. There are no priests. You want to know why? Because they don't know their bloodlines. Because Nero took it away from them. It wasn't just the destruction of Israel. It wasn't just Jesus said, I'm going to tear down this temple and not a single stone will be stacked on top of the other. God took away their name. He took away the memories of who they were. He said, you are not going to have priests. You're not going to be able to send anybody to come talk to me. You want to talk to me? You got to go talk to my son. No priests for you to this day. And the Jews will have you believe, oh, that was just a big coincidence that all that stuff happened at exactly the same time. Well, that's a hell of a coincidence. Talk about your cognitive dissonance. You know what I mean? Confirmation bias. There was a spiritual cost for what happened. And you can see it. 2,000 years of exile was the consequence of their decisions. The destruction of their temple and the burning of their records. That all happened. Now, fast forward 2,000 years, we start talking about killing babies. This isn't, listen, you have to grasp this because it's happening right now. This is not something that's coming. We are smack in the middle of this battle. You have to get prepared as much as you can. Going back a little bit further, a lot of people will say, well, how can you believe in this God of this Bible when it's so clear that even if that God existed, he's some sort of sociopath, psychopath, man. He kills babies. Because there's stories, man, you want to read this book. There's all kinds of stories of God telling his people, Israel, go into that camp and kill everybody. Kill the men, kill the women, kill the children, kill the animals, and don't touch anything and leave. Just go in, massacre everything that has breath, everything, even little bitty babies. That's a hard pill to swallow at first. Hard pill. How do you answer that? And if you bothered to read it for yourself, you would find there's a lot of stories like that. And by the way, that all happened inside of the established, what they believed was the established borders of their land. God never said, go attack these people that are outside of your borders. It was all internal stuff. It was national security stuff, if you will. And some people, God said, hey, go over to those people and tell them that this is your land now. And they can either worship me, and you'll have to teach them all about me. And the men will have to be circumcised. And they'll have to abstain from pork, and they'll have to not work on Saturdays, and blah, blah, blah. And then if they do that, then marry their daughters and give them your daughters for them to marry. So be a family. And if they don't want to do that, then just politely say, well, then you got to get the hell off of our land. This is our land now. Get out. Beat it. Why the difference? Why would God say to Israel, well, go to those people, be real nice to them, give them an invitation to come and worship your God with you, and be family. Be family with these people. And then other tribes, he said, go in and kill anything that has breath, and don't touch anything. Well, just given what I've said so far, it would bear the necessity for further investigation, right? Given what I just told you, because there's that thing where it's like, people come up and be like, whoa, why does God, if there is a God, he's a psychopath because he said kill the babies. And then it's like, you read it for yourself and it's like, yeah, he did that. And he also did that other thing. So there must be some sort of difference between these two types of people. What could it possibly have been? And then you do a little bit further study. And it turns out that when God told Israel, go in and massacre everybody, even the animals, anything that has breath, kill it. And don't touch anything. Why the severe, you know what I mean? Like it's horrific to think about. Why would God do that? Why would God say that? I thought God was just all lovey-dovey. Why is this in here? I can't marry up those two concepts that God is love, and yet he told his people, according to this book, which we know if anything is wrong in here, if anything is a lie, then the whole thing is a lie. I can't marry those two concepts together. God is love, and he said, kill everything with breath. How can both of those things be true at the same time? Well, I guess it would depend on a number of things, wouldn't it? It would depend on what the true definition of love is, and then it would, depend on what the true definition of truth is, and it would also depend on who were those people. Who were those people? What was so special about them that they received such a severe sentence? Not just to go in and take over those people and kill all the men and take the women as slaves and the children as slaves or whatever. No. God said, you need to go in and wipe their bloodline from the earth so that it's no longer in the earth. And the story of those people is over and forgotten. That is a severe judgment. Why? Well, as it turns out, when you do a little bit of research, you find out who these people were that God said to exterminate. Exterminate! Exterminate! Come on, guys. You don't know your Doctor Who? Why did God demand that these people be exterminated? Like cockroaches. How could a God of love do such a drastic, horrific thing? Turns out those camps were worshipers. They were devotees. They were of the orthodoxy of a god named Moloch. Moloch. Belloch. Remember that? Belloch. 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 Moloch. And Moloch demanded child sacrifice. If you wanted Moloch to give you power, you had to murder a baby. Those were the worshipers of Moloch. All of those tribes or nations, or however it is that you want to conceptualize it in your mind, every single one of those, when God told Israel, go wipe out, just go exterminate everything. This is where it gets dark. It was because they had gotten well into the practice of murdering babies. You see this thing going on in New York, you see what's happening in Virginia, and mark my words, California and Colorado are next. You see these things happening. You think there's not going to be severe consequences. There is severe consequences, and you might miss the fact when it happens that it's God's hand. God said wipe those people out because they're so far gone that they're irredeemable. They've got some sort of sickness. Now think about this. Like in those parts of the Bible where God says go exterminate these people, there is always this weird order. Because like when you're in battle, like, you know, the object of war is to gain land and money. You know what I mean? It's to take over. It's like, oh, this is our land now and all of its resources. All of the brass and the gold and the copper and the fields of grass for our sheep, whatever. That's the whole point of war, is to take stuff. But in the case of the Moloch, the worshipers of Moloch, God always said, don't touch the silver, the gold, the ornaments, the tents. Don't touch anything. Why? That's a weird thing to say. Why is that? Nobody knows, by the way. I'm going to give you the answer, but I can't prove it. And this is going to sound bat guano crazy. So just, brace yourselves. But think about that. If somebody says, hey, listen, when you go into this camp of people, don't touch anything. What purpose? Like in modern day. Like let's say you go on a missions trip with your church to Somalia, Eritrea. And before you go, you're briefed by this representative of the Department of, I don't know, whatever. They say, look, it's good that you're going to go down there and preach the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Here's the thing. Don't touch anything. Don't touch anything. Eat MREs from a bag. Don't touch forks and knives. Why? Well, because this is the most diseased place literally on the planet. Don't touch anything. And if you do touch anything, wash your hands immediately. God forbid if somebody's wounded in the street and you run to help them and you get their blood on you, run. Don't walk. Run and wash that off. There's disease everywhere. Do you follow where I'm going with this? God tells these people, these worshipers, Moloch, don't touch anything. Don't touch the silver and gold. Why? Is it possible, and listen, again, I don't have any scriptural basis for this other than there's this weird little law 3,500 years ago that Moses, right, because the Jews had 10 commandments and 613 laws, or points of the law. And it was all from God. And one of those laws, not a commandment, but the law was wash your hands before you eat. Now think about this. If you're 3,500 years ago, nobody has discovered germs yet or anything near it. There's no microscopes in which to discover germs with. There are no hospital labs in which to put a microscope in. There is no medical science in which would necessitate a building to put a medical lab in which to put the microscope in to find the germ. You see what I'm saying? There's nothing. Imagine how that sounded to those people. Hey, listen, God says, before you eat, what he wants you to do is he wants you to take some water and pour it on each hand. And then he wants you to rub your hands together and then wait for it. This is where the song really takes off. He wants you to pour water on your hands again and then take a towel and dry them off, and then you can eat. And if you do this, God will be pleased. This will be pleasing to the Lord. That would have sounded crazy, but they did it, because they were Jews and they trusted Moses. And 3,500 years ago, later, we find out that the reason why God told them that is there's these itty bitty little living things that live on everything. And God was telling them, just wash those off before you eat. Trust me, your health will be so much better off for it. Is it possible that the reason why God said don't touch the stuff was because somehow there's a connection between the spiritual world and the physical, and these people, these child murderers who were worshiping Moloch, had contracted a sickness out of the spiritual realm that was communicable? I could go there's a whole story of this, the Valley of Achor, where one time God told him don't touch anything, and this one guy did. And he brought it back to the camp, and everybody started getting sick. And Joshua went to God. He's like, I don't understand what's going on here. Why are you punished? Everybody's getting sick. This is not a coincidence. What's going on, Lord? And God said, I told you not to touch anything. He said, we didn't touch anything. What are you talking about? He said, I know you didn't, but that guy did. It's underneath his tent right now. And you got to take him out and kill him because he's got the sickness. These people are sick. They just declared we're going to kill babies, not only at 9 months, but at 9 months plus 10 minutes or whatever. We're going to kill babies at 9 months, and Virginia's like, hold my beer. We're going to kill babies even after they've been born and severed at the umbilical cord. Sick. And it's a chess move. They're not interested in women's health. How would that be an issue of women's health? Oh, well, it could be their mental health. Oh, you mean like the distress you're going to feel when your baby comes out and it has some sort of deformity, and that's going to stress you out, and God forbid life be hard on you, you precious little snowflake? That's literally what's in the language, mental injury. If the woman could be mentally injured from the birth of her baby, as in the baby's retarded, or the baby has 3 fingers instead of 5, or a cleft palate, or just doesn't look pretty enough, the mother can say, well, this is mental abuse right here. Kill that thing. I don't want that. That is what's happening. You have to understand. You must understand. These things do not go unpunished, and it's not like the Jews saying, give us Barabbas. Let his blood, let the whole world know that even though the Romans are going to be the ones actually performing the execution of the Son of God, we want everybody to know that really it's on our hands. The Romans are going to do it, but we just want everybody to know it was our hands that killed this man. Give us Barabbas. And Jesus said, Father, I know you're angry, but forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. They haven't thought it all the way through. They just haven't considered the scriptures, all of them, together. They think in terms of the temporal and you are eternal, and they just, you know what, God, you just got to forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. You got to forgive them. And so God did. So God did. He didn't exterminate all of those people. But instead, he scattered them, destroyed their temple, and burned their records, and said, no more priests for you. If you want to talk to me again, you're going to have to go see the high priest. His name is Jesus Christ. He's my son. 2,000 years of exile, the destruction, well, in order, the destruction of the temple, the burning of the records, and then 2,000 years of exile. It all happened right then. Forgive them, Father, but they don't know what they're doing. That's not the case right now. There is no prayer of forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. Andrew Cuomo knows exactly what he's doing. He's saying, oh, the Republicans, conservatives, the Christian people are gaining power because Trump is waking them up. Like, this is your country, people. Take control of it. And Andrew Cuomo says, well, if that's going to be the move, if that's what God is going to do to wake his people up, then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to murder babies right in front of them. And there's nothing they can do because it's all legal. I'm going to sacrifice these babies to Moloch right in front of them. They know what they're doing. There is severe punishment coming. There is severe punishment coming. And listen, funny thing about battlefields, you know how they say nature hates a vacuum? Well, there is a vacuum on battlefields of safe spaces. You know, this is going to be a bloody battle. Satan has already positioned himself. Right? He can't win, but there's little moves he can make, like making it so that lynching laws become a federal matter instead of a state matter. If the people of Virginia go and they grab the governor of Virginia, who's passing this law right now, and drag him out in the streets and execute him, it won't be a state matter, it'll be a federal matter. The FBI will be involved. The marshals will be involved. Federal employees will be involved. It's a different matter. The people of the state of Virginia won't have a voice in that because it's not a state matter. It'll be a federal matter. That's why they did that. Chess moves, little chess moves. You don't believe it? Okay, fine. Well, how do you explain the fact that a lynching hasn't happened in the United States since 1981? Some of you listeners weren't even born yet. My wife wasn't even born yet the last time a lynching happened in the United States. Why the urgency? Because they know. Because they can see it coming. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. There is no Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They know exactly what they're doing. And God's judgment on that sort of thing is severe. It is so severe that it turns Christians away. There have been many people, they call seminary, there's good seminaries all over the United States. And they refer to it as cemetery. It's like a play on words. They say that the number one number one machine that churns out atheists is seminary. Like, you go to seminary, there's a really good chance you're going to come out the other side an atheist. And you want to know why? It's because of stories like that. Because you read those stories and it's like, okay, I can't put those two opposing facts together. The book of 1 John says, "Beloved, let us love one another." Here, I'll read it to you. Hold on a second. I got like 12 minutes and then I got to go meet with Troy. Here it is. 1 John chapter 4, verse 7. "Beloved, let us love one another. For love is of God, and everyone that loves is born of God and knows God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love." How do you marry that verse with go into that camp and exterminate every living thing and don't touch anything? That's what produces atheists. Because without the Holy Spirit, without the ability to look into the spiritual realm and see things from God's perspective, you cannot put those two things together. Your mind will boggle, and then you'll be an atheist. You understand, there is nothing more important to God than life. The continuation of life, the creation of life. You know what I mean? Like, it's everything that we can see is alive. The grass, the other people, everything. An eternal fire they talk about like an eternal fire, and you know what? I'm sorry, I'm not going to get into that. I got to wrap this up. I got 9 minutes, and I have a prayer meeting, prayer discipling with Troy, and then 3 other meetings after that. But look, there's bad stuff coming. You need to get in contact with your Creator. And if you don't understand these things, you can just ask Him for understanding. It may take the rest of your life. You might have an instant revelation and get it all understood in 5 minutes. Who knows? I don't know what your deal is with God. But I do know this: God loves you and wants to protect you. And this, you can see these things happening right now. They were just talking about, Andrew Cuomo was on TV saying, the reason why we did this is because so many people love Donald Trump. And they're starting to position themselves to where they don't want government funds going towards abortion anymore. And they don't want abortions happening after a certain point anymore, because it's so grotesque to even the layman. Anybody can look and be like, yeah, 22 weeks, that's disgusting. You can't do that. Even far lefties are like, yeah, that's legit. Like, you can't do that. They see what's happening. They see that they're losing, and so they moved to raise a giant middle finger to the Almighty and say, fine, you want it that way? We're going to just kill babies. We're going to worship Moloch right in front of you and right in front of everybody else, and there's nothing you can do about it. But oh boy, dear atheist, you are about to find out the answer to that question. Is there or is there not a God? And you're going to be on the wrong end of that answer. That's a show for today. Listen, folks, on a lighter note, send me money. PayPal.me/archadvocate. PayPal.me/archadvocate. I don't want to get too, I'm always, I just want to keep that, hey, support the show thing. I don't want to get too wordy with it, because I'm a hell of a salesman now, right? I don't want to say a bunch of stuff that's going to try to convince you. Do it or don't do it. If you think you're going to do it, then do it. If you're not going to do it, then don't do it. And if that's you, dude, would you hit share? Would you tell a friend? Right? When you're sitting around talking in your Bible study, your church group, your coffee room at work, whatever, and be like, look, and other people are like, man, there's some really bizarre stuff going on right now. Take that opportunity to say, look, dude, tune into the Arch Advocate podcast. That's what we're talking about. Learn how to pray. Understand that God has this for you. Don't listen to other Christians who tell you like, oh no, God doesn't speak to anybody anymore. That's a heresy. It's a lie. Speak to God. Know Him. Walk with Him. Be protected by Him. And understand that like you stepping into the spiritual world, it's a battle. There's two things that you're guaranteed when you do that. God's protection, God's instruction, which is not always painless. But the other thing that you're guaranteed is in fact a battle. And it's going to get ugly. Be prepared for it. That's the show for today. PayPal.me/archadvocate. And we will talk to you next month, baby. Tomorrow is February 1st. That went quick. Hey, talk to you then.